Okay. What city are we in right now?
We're in North Las Vegas. Across the street is Las Vegas,
So there's about 2,000 homeless beds in Clark County.
in the greater Clark County area.
How many homeless people are estimated to be in Clark County?
About 43,000.
43,000. So that's a very small number. It's very,
2.2%.
and that's for a total population of about 2 million people. Is that correct?
Yeah, 1.9. But if you got 43 homeless people and you only got 2,000 beds, that means that you got 41,000 homeless people that are going to be on the street.
Period. End of story.
And any place between 27 and 31% of that number are going to be veterans.
Say that number again, please.
Any place between 27 and 31% are going to be veterans.
Has that been broken down by what conflict they're a veteran of?
Yes. That gets more into that
So
book
how many
here.
of them are Vietnam era veterans? How many of them are post-Vietnam era veterans? And how many of them are Iraq, Afghanistan veterans?
Right now, what's happening is we're towards the end of the Vietnam veterans. Most of the Vietnam veterans, if they're indigent, they're going to be indigent for things other than necessarily being in the Vietnam War, because they're going to be in their lower to mid 60s. So they've got a whole separate population that you're dealing with now. Mostly what we're dealing with are post-Vietnam veterans, and we're getting an increased amount of what they call OIF, OEF veterans that are coming in from the Afghanistan-Iraqi war. But they're younger, and you've got individuals now that are surviving because of what you call TBIs, traumatic brain injuries that would have killed people in other wars, but here they're left kind of like with severe Alzheimer's, but they might be 22, 23, or 24, and they don't understand what has happened. But it's almost like shaken baby syndrome, as they explained it to me, because the shock wave that they're able to survive because of better armor and better shields still doesn't block the shock wave.
Faster and better urgent care as well.
Yes. Yeah, all of that. So they're trickling in now. I don't know what the statistics are of them. I would imagine it would be in the single digits, but it's rising. The longer the war goes, the higher they rise. And a lot of them haven't come to grips with the fact that they actually have a problem. So, because it took a long time for the Vietnam veterans to come on in, it's taking them similar. But with better reporting, and you've got a Veterans Homeless Hotline, which I'm also a coordinator of.
Please tell us about what the Veterans Homeless Hotline does.
They've got a hotline. The VA has a hotline for any veteran that feels that they are going to experience homelessness or are homeless. They can call this hotline. It's out of Canandaigua, New York, and they get to whatever the coordinators are throughout the whole United States. They have the names of the individuals to call, and they do two things. A lot of times they call me on the telephone to let me know that they're putting in one in the computer, and then I go into the computer and I bring it up with their telephone numbers and information, and then I contact the veteran to see how I can best help his situation. It's tied in with the suicide hotline.
Think in your mind of someone who came to you that exact way recently. Think of a specific person. Don't say their name, obviously.
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about their story.
I had a gentleman that is 80 years old that called Canandaigua. The counselor contacted me. I talked with the individual, and what he was looking for was housing that would fit his particular need. And what I basically did was I gave him a brief synopsis of what could be available for him, but I told him if he wanted more, because you can't necessarily do all of that over the telephone, I asked him to come in to see us, and we could discuss all of his options after we do an intake and see where he actually stays. If he's 80 years old, he's most likely getting Social Security, so I need to find out exactly how much money he's getting, and he might fit into what we call our HUD-VASH program, which He can stay any place in the city that he wants, have his own apartment, and it's kind of like Section 8 for veterans. So I asked him to come in either probably next week, and we can go over all his options and see if we can find something that's the best fit for him.
How much does the VA contribute in that the way the HUD does for Section 8?
They don't contribute in that way. There are so many vouchers that are allotted for certain areas and is given to the housing authority, and the housing authority, we work with them, and after they inspect the place that the veteran wants, the veteran chooses his own place. And if the landlord is willing to, pass the housing authority's criteria for Section 8, and the landlord is accepting of Section 8, then the veteran can have that voucher, and it also comes with 5 years of case management if the veteran needs it.
So there is or isn't federal money coming to the landlord?
The landlord gets their money through the housing authority, which is connected with HUD, and whatever the veteran pays 30% of his gross income, and HUD makes up the rest of that. And that's a program that is joined with the VA. Now, whether the VA is giving money to HUD in order to do that, that's way beyond my pay grade.
Tell us about some of the efforts that you do as a third-degree Knight of Columbus for the community rather than specifically for the church itself.
One of them is I have a partnership or volunteer with what they call Family Promise. Family Promise is a non-denominational organization that houses homeless families. And you have like about 20, I think it's about 26, 27 different churches that volunteer their space to house homeless families over the night. And they spend like 3 or 4 weeks in one church, and then they move them to another church and another church. And I'm part of that through the Christ the King Catholic community.
What do you do for that effort specifically? Do you coordinate it, or are you one of the people that goes and spends the night in the church? What do you do?
I'm one of the people that spends the night in the church, and I help them get their dinner, I help them get their breakfast, help make sure that they get off in the morning to go about their duties in the morning. Also take care of any of the problems that they might have during the night, if they need more blankets, pillows, if any of the kids are having any problems, showing them movies, the kids get settled in, and then the next day I see them off and other people take over the next.
Does Family Promise have a program of social work where they coordinate and help them job hunt and all that?
Yes.
Is there any other program that you work through Knights of Columbus that you think bears mentioning?
They do Toys for Tots. They do the Tootsie Roll Drive that helps, the money goes to help children with different disabilities, mental and or physical. They do poppy drives. They place flags on the graves of the veterans during the Memorial Day ceremonies. Of course, they also officiate at different church functions like funerals and or weddings. We minister to the individuals who are shut in. I used to, when I was with the Prince of Peace, would go and would bring the Eucharist to nursing homes when I was doing that.
Please explain to us what Eucharist means.
In the Catholic Church, the belief is, as Jesus had the Last Supper, he changed the bread into his body and the wine into his blood, and that is celebrated every Sunday in Catholic Mass, and it's called the Eucharist.
So you're allowed to give communion?
Yes.
Even though you're not a priest?
I help the priest give communion.
Okay. So when you bring the Eucharist, you and a priest?
I do this I was taught on how to do it. The priest has to bless the bread. I can't do that, but I can bring the bread to the individuals after the priest has blessed it and serve it to them.
Okay, thank you. How many hours a week do you serve your community, including your employment and your not employment efforts?
10 hours a day.
7 days.
Yeah, conservatively, 10 hours a day.
How many people, how many individuals do you think you come in contact with that you actually help each year? Just a ballpark.
3,000, 4,000,
So 10 new ones a day.
pretty much.
Wow, that's a lot. How long have you been working here at the VA?
13, 15 years. If you don't count the internship and you don't count the provisional hire, 13 years. If you count that, 15.
During those 15 years, how many individuals do you think you've helped get off the street?
If you think about maybe 3,000 a year times 15, that would be a fair estimate.
That's 45,000.
The problem is, though, that you may help or assist them get off the street. That doesn't mean they necessarily stay off the street.
That was going to be my next question.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I did.
That's okay. No, that's-
Recidivism is very high.
So out of the 45,000 people that you think you may have helped get off the street during your career here at the VA, how many of those people do you think stayed off the street? Just guess.
A good third.
A third stayed off the street.
Yes.
So about 15,000.
Yeah.
That's pretty powerful. Let's pretend for a moment that this ink pen in my hand isn't an ink pen, but it's a magic wand.
Okay.
Okay? And I could change things for you. What specifically would you need to have changed?
More housing.
More housing. And the key to that is basically money.
Pretty much.
More money. So how much money do you think you could effectively utilize that you're not getting?
You're talking about millions.
A year.
Oh yeah, easily, conservatively 5,
$5 million a year.
easily.
So if that $5 million a year came to you,
hmm
how much of a difference how many people more could you help? And do you think that statistic of 30% staying off the street would hold?
You could probably help, obviously, a lot more. And I don't know if that would change the recidivism rate, but the mere fact that you change the amount of people that you got off the street would raise the amount of people that stayed off the street. So statistically, let's say we helped 10,000 and only 3,000 stayed off the street. If you double that and we got 20,000 people off, then now we've got about 8 million people off. Or
Well,
thousand off
it
the
would
ground.
be 6,000.
6,000, yeah.
6,000.
So you would raise it proportionately to whatever you've got. So the recidivism rate may not change, but the number of individuals would change.
Of the 45,000 people you've helped to get off the street and the 15 that you estimate stayed off the street, how many of those 15 do you believe today are currently gainfully employed and paying taxes?
I would say at least half.
Half. So 7,500.
Yeah.
What efforts do you make at raising funds other than asking for money from the federal government?
Well, as a VA employee, I'm barred from trying to solicit funds from any organization. However, because I'm a member of